The Still Loading Podcast is brought to you by the amazing people over on Patreon. Awesome people such as Mr. Biscuits, Stephen B., Kevin from the Bit by Bit Foundation, Eric H., and Gilmer were awesome enough to support the show. And if you would like to support the show as well, get your name read on an episode as well as a bunch of other goodies, go over to patreon.com/stillloadingpod and check it all out. On this episode of Still Loading, hello everyone, and welcome to the second episode of Mario Month for 2024. Welcome to this new episode of Still Loading. I am your host, Josh Koval, and today on the show, we will be covering the third installment in the Mario Kart series, because technically I did cover the original game outside of a Mario Month because I'm apparently a Mario heathen. I don't know. But we are covering Mario Kart Super Circuit today, and joining me to discuss Mario Kart's first portable entry, first handheld entry in the entire series, I have two wonderful guests for you. First off, a Mario Month returning guest. He was on Mario Month last year. I have Eric from the Unlockables. Eric, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good while also grappling with the fact that, oh my God, that was a year ago. It's already another Mario Month. How did this happen?
Time flies when you're old.
Yes, absolutely.
Something like that. That's sage wisdom, I guess. Our second guest joining Eric and I to discuss this, a returning guest to the show, but not to Mario Month, Dave from Remember 64. Dave, how are you doing today?
I'm doing quite well. I'm at the tail end of a little bit of a cold, but otherwise I am very happy to be sitting here and chatting about some Mario Kart, some Mario games in general. This is great. This is awesome. So I'm more than happy to be chatting about this. So yeah, happy to be here.
Happy to have you on, and you normally get stuck with all the Nintendo 64 games, so this is allowing you to spread your wings and branch out a little bit.
I love how you say getting stuck with, like,
well,
right, yeah.
I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Well,
How dare you typecast Dave, Josh? That's
how
that's
dare
not
you
fair.
typecast me with a podcast that I created myself on a whim about a particular console and type of game. How dare you?
Well, I've looked at your catalog, and you covered almost all the good Nintendo 64 games at the top of the list. Like, so all that's left is there are very few gems, except for the hidden gems and a couple like major ones, which, by the way, I'm still calling dibs on. The World Is Not Enough for the 007 game when you inevitably do it.
Yes.
But
yes.
That one is a go-to for me. But yeah, so that's what I was saying. Like, you're kind of stuck with the Nintendo 64 now. You already covered the great ones, and now you're kind of stuck with what's left.
Yeah, there's a lot of what could be defined as what's left on that console for sure. Because I think, like, this is the way I've put it on a bunch of episodes, and maybe even the episode that you were on where we talked about Toy Story as well, Toy Story 2, which, by the way, great game. Great game.
Really
we had a great time talking about it, and first time I played through it, it was awesome. But it's very awkward. It's an awkward generation of consoles, and it's definitely an awkward console for multiple reasons. Whether it's the way games play, the controller doesn't work for everybody sometimes. Like, it's just, there's a lot of that. So it's like, well, what are these studios? What are these devs doing with these games if they're not Nintendo properties? And there's a lot of interesting stuff out there. There's a few gems that people, I think, have like really enjoyed themselves growing up that I never played, and was pleasantly surprised about that. The first one that always comes to mind so far for me is Buck Bumble. Everyone should play that game. It's great, and the music's incredible. But yeah, there's a lot of everything else on the N64 for sure.
Well, our
I
controllers didn't work because of Mario Party. I mean, that was the reason. We all broke our joysticks rotating it in Mario Party.
Yeah, 100%.
And you know what? Real talk. We were joking around off mic how I'm a little bit punchy today. I'm like cranky about random bullshit. Know what I'm cranky about in regards to the N64? People complain about the controller way too damn much. It's not that bad of a
I agree.
controller.
Yeah.
It's a
No,
good
it's fine.
fucking controller.
I
People
think it's a good controller.
it's a meme now to make fun of it because like, oh, why does it have 3 different things? What, it's got like 3 dicks? I don't know what's going on with this thing. Fucking who cares? It's a good controller. It's comfortable in your hand. It's ergonomic. You bunch of whiny bitches. Anyway,
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Is it perfect?
I
No,
have no,
but it's
I have no
definitely
issues
not
with
as
that.
bad. Yeah.
Man, this is like a 180 from my mood in the previous episode, which was recorded like a month
What a
prior
whiplash.
to this.
Right?
Listeners, you are
you're
getting
high Josh today.
this is like full spectrum Josh. But anyway, so let's leave the punchiness. Well, I might get who knows what random things are going to peeve me or peeve me. I don't know. I'm so tired. I don't. Who knows what's going to bother me as we go on. But we are going to dive into this game in earnest. So I want to start off with this for both of you. We usually start off the episodes with personal experiences and whatnot. I do think we should talk about that, and I want you both to relay your personal experiences. Mine, there's none. I don't have any personal experiences with this game. In fact, I said in the Mario Kart 64 episode, and it'll be the first time you both hear this. I'm not a huge Mario Kart fan, not because I think they're bad. I could never get into kart racing games. It's just never been my cup of tea. So I chose Mario Kart as the topic, as the theme for this year's Mario month, almost as a challenge to myself to be like, let me like force me to play these games and see what I enjoy, see what I don't enjoy out of them. So my personal experience with this game was literally, I heard about it on Retronauts that they were pleasantly surprised by it, so I picked up a copy, never touched it until I prepped for this game, for this episode, and then I didn't even play my original copy. I played it on the Switch just because it's a little bit more convenient than playing it on my Game Boy Advance SP. So I'm going to throw it over to you guys now, though. That's literally all that I have for my personal experience. We're going to start off with you, Dave. So what is your personal experience? And more importantly, why did you choose Mario Kart Super Circuit for the episode? Because, I sent a list to a bunch of people of like, I'm covering Mario Kart games, and you're like, Super Circuit, that's mine. Put me down on it. So I got to know, why Super Circuit?
Well, for me, there's a Mario Kart 64 episode that you're doing that you have, but for me, I am in love with the original Super Mario Kart. Like that is my go-to. I have a boxed version that I purchased a couple years ago that I'm just going to cherish. I wish I still had my complete version for when I was a kid, but I was like, you know what? I saw it for a good deal. I was trading a couple games in it. I love that game. To me, it's my favorite one, partially because of nostalgia. Mario Kart 64 doesn't quite work for me. It's fine, but I'm not going to pick it up and play it on my own. I don't love that game. There's a lot of aspects gameplay wise that don't work for me. And I was speaking about how the N64 is awkward. That version of Mario Kart feels very awkward to me. This one, because it's the third one and because it is also handheld, and because it's on sort of, I guess they're all kind of on a 2D plane in a way, but I don't know. This feels a lot more like what the original was, just because of the limitations of it needing to be on a handheld. And I played this when I was growing up, but I never owned it, and I didn't play it that much. And I wanted to re-explore this. That's one of the reasons why I said, put me down for that. Not only do I like Mario Kart games, I want to play an old school version again, and one that feels, or hopefully feels, like my favorite in the franchise. So I don't have a ton of experience with it. I remember playing it on or borrowing it from a friend a couple times. And it really surprises me that I never owned it, because this is like right at my wheelhouse at this time when I had a GBA. I still have my original GBA.
Nice.
And works no problem. I've had zero issues with it from day one. It's a nice silver. It doesn't have too many scratches on it and stuff. No problem with the batteries or screen or any of that stuff so far. Fingers crossed. So I'm surprised I never owned this and played it all that much. So I was like, you know what, let's give it a shot. And then once it came up as an option, I realized, oh yeah, it's also on Switch Online, so even better. So let's do it. So I was excited. I just wanted to jump in and play something that could feel somewhat new, but also a little bit more nostalgia filled as well, because I have that love for the original.
Okay. And there's a lot of similarities to this one and the original for a number of reasons that we'll get to,
Yeah.
obviously. But Eric, throwing it over to you, what are your personal experiences with this game? And I'm going to ask the same question to you as well. Why Mario Kart Super Circuit?
I don't remember if I had a choice. I think maybe you were messaging me about finding people. I think you originally messaged me first about Mario Kart for the DS, and I was like, oh, I don't have any experience with it. And you were kind of telling me your plans for Mario Month this year. And when I saw it, and you're like, well, would you want to be on any of these? And I saw Super Circuit, and really what drew me to this one in particular was my love for the Game Boy Advance as a console. More than any other system, I mean, maybe except the 360. The Game Boy Advance had a really, really huge impact on my life. It was one of my go-to consoles since it came out to the late 2000s. There are so many games on it that I just love and cherish, and several of which are like in my top 10 games of all time. And Super Circuit was actually a
Mhm.
game that I was fortunate enough to own. Similarly to Dave, I don't think very fondly on Mario Kart 64. I don't. They're just, again, this isn't an episode of Mario Kart 64, but there are a lot of aspects of that game that I just don't really sit right with me. I did own the original Super Mario Kart for Super Nintendo, so that kind of started my love of Mario Kart. But my Nintendo 64 times were really weird. I owned a Nintendo 64, but I didn't own like any of the marquee titles. So
Whoa,
no
come
Mario
on, really?
64, no Ocarina, no
Ooh.
GoldenEye, no what else? So I had basically the games I had were like the Pokemon Stadiums. I had Army Men, Sarge's Heroes, Gauntlet Legends, but I didn't own any of like what you would call the quote unquote like marquee titles, Mario Kart
Yeah.
64. So my Nintendo 64 experience was like really, really weird. So when I saw this game, I'm pretty sure I probably asked for it along with my Game Boy Advance, and I had it, and I played the absolute crap out of it. And now doing research on it for this episode, I went back and I replayed through all of it via the Nintendo Switch Online Collection, which that was like the best thing they did was adding the Game Boy Advance games. Freaking love it, man. And much to my surprise, found out that Mario Kart Super Circuit was headed up by one of my favorite studios of all time, Intelligent Systems. And
Hmm.
Intelligent Systems just happened to have made two of my all-time favorite games on the Game Boy Advance, Advance Wars 1 and 2, and Fire Emblem, the first Fire Emblem that ever came over from America. So when I saw this, I was like, GBA, all those connections kind of came together, and I'm like, yeah, let's talk about Mario Kart Super Circuit. So that's kind of my tale.
And intelligent systems, I think that's a great jumping off point in the next thing I want to talk about in regards to this game. So the game originally came out on July 21st, 2001 in Japan. It came out on August 27th, 2001 in North America, and September 14th, 2001 in Europe. And like you said, it was developed by Intelligent Systems. And so I know Intelligent Systems for, Fire Emblem. I know them for Advance Wars. I knew all of that. What I didn't know until I literally just looked up their credits list, they are sneakily one of the most important developers of all time.
Yes,
um,
absolutely.
they have their hands in almost every little bit of Nintendo DNA. Their first credited game developed, at least according to Wikipedia, so take that with a grain of salt, because it does say that the company was founded in 1986, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense unless I guess they did the port of the 1983 game. I guess that's what they did.
So
The
I have a
original Mario
founding in
Bros.
1983. I found they were around since 1983, but they
Well, I
weren't
think
always doing video game stuff.
Yeah, that's often the
okay.
case with a lot of
Yeah.
these studios in the 80s. Yeah.
I mean, what's interesting though, on Wikipedia it says 86, but you know what? I
Mm.
will have to. I'm actually on their company website, but it's all in. It says founded in 1986 on their website, but you
Oh,
know
I must
what?
have just wrote down it wrote it wrong instead.
It is all in
I
Japanese
apologize.
though, so I might have to double check. But I see the year 86, the kanji for year and the 1986 listed right next to it. Um, But in any case, yeah, so Intelligent Systems has been around for a while. I'm pretty sure the original Super Mario Brothers came out in 80, not Super Mario, the original Mario Brothers, like the arcade game Mario
Mhm.
Brothers, came out in 1983, and it got ported to the Famicom in 1986, at least in North America. So that's the only thing I can think of as maybe they handled like the North American port of it. I'm not quite sure.
Mhm.
But besides that, like they have their hands in the Metroid series. They have their hands obviously in the Fire Emblem. We already talked about that, but WarioWare, another huge series from Nintendo. Um, they have their hands in so many different things. Codename Steam, which is low key, I've heard is a decent game for the 3DS. I actually own it. I own Codename Steam. It's another tactics based game, but it apparently it's a little different. I don't know. I haven't played it, so I can't really talk too much about it. But they've been around for years, and they've been around at least since, like we said, 1986, and just they worked on Gyromite, they worked on Stack Up. At least once again, this is all according to Wikipedia. I would have to cross reference all of this.
Oh, they also had their hands on Mario Paint. Hell
Yes,
yes.
Yes, sir.
and
Hell
SimCity,
yes. Oh my
the
And
god.
Super Nintendo
SimCity.
version of SimCity. Yeah,
Yeah, their
Wow.
list of games that they're involved with is literally insane. And
Oh,
if you
and yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say if you kind of just like just line up their titles and go through the years, like they've been involved in a video game release since their founding, except for 87 and 97, which is just an insane
Crazy.
streak of like putting out games every single year.
Yeah, and I will say I've said this a couple of times since I played it, but I played all the way through Paper Mario, like the original one, for the first time last year. So 2023 is for new games was insane. There's so many
yeah.
amazing games that came out, but Paper Mario is still one of the my favorite games that I played in 2023. It is
Mhm.
that good, and they
The
developed that
original
game.
one.
The original one. It is so freaking good. I love it, and that's the only experience I have with that franchise, and it's amazing. The fact that they also made that just before this game came out, or around the same time, it looks like. Yeah, just before Super Circuit came out, they released Paper Mario the year before. That's a good 1-2 punch right there, I tell you.
And just
And
even going on from there, like you have Super Circuit in 01, you have the first you have FE6, which was Japan only in 02, but it's still an incredible game. Advance Wars 1 and 2, FE7, WarioWare Inc. in 2003. You have the Thousand Year Door, which is I know is a critically acclaimed Paper Mario game. So like in the early 2000s, Intelligent Systems had a pretty crazy run.
Yeah.
and I'm sure they didn't necessarily have design all of these games. Like for example, they worked on the original Metroid. I'm sure it was more as like assistance as opposed
Right.
to like pulling the design work and a lot of the heavy lifting. But they definitely they assisted with it. They had their hands in it in some way, shape, or form, which is just absolutely bonkers to think about. Like it's just the fact that they've been around for so long. And it I had to at least bring it up. That, and also there's only so much you can say about the mechanics of Mario Kart games, from game to game. So I wanted to really talk about and highlight Intelligent Systems because man, they do some absolutely fantastic work.
Mhm.
The game was originally going to be called Mario Kart Advance, and it actually got first announced in the popular Japanese manga book series Koro Koro, and it's where they first previewed Super Circuit with screenshots of it, and it was kind of cryptic. Like it's such a weird place to show. Like, I mean, I guess it's not weird because it's popular in Japan, but it's interesting that it seems like to only have been shown there initially. So some of its tech benefits, though, or some of the technological advances in this game compared to the original Super Mario Kart, which these two games compare pretty heavily because the original Super Mario Kart on the Super Nintendo was 2D with mode 7 to make it appear as 3D. It had kind of like a faux 3D, and Mario Kart Super Circuit does the same thing as well. It's kind of like a mode 7 style kart racer, but it can do sprite scaling unlike the original Super Mario Kart, so that way the sprites look a lot more fluid. It was the first game in the Mario Kart series that series producer Hideki Kono did not direct. He supervised it, but he did not direct.
Hmm.
So, and one last real quick fun fact to get into this: voice actor John Houlihan's voice, he this is interesting. So John Hulleton was the voice announcer for Wave Race 64. And this ties
Oh,
back in.
Nice.
This
Oh,
ties
man.
back in with this, I promise. While recording that, they handed him a note asking him to read some random other lines. Those were the same lines used for Mario Kart 64.
Oh my god.
However,
Insane.
he was only paid for the one game.
Oh my
So
god.
he
dick
only got
move.
paid for
Come
Wave Race
on.
64.
Jesus.
And it gets worse.
Oh no.
In the Japanese and international releases of Super Circuit, they reused his voice recordings in the game as the announcer voices for Super Circuit, but did not even credit him in the game.
Oh man.
What the hell?
Nintendo doing them dirty, man.
No kidding.
It's like, listen, we'll just have him do a bunch of extra voice lines. We'll pay him for this session, and then we'll just use them. That's morally ethical.
Oh, brutal.
What an absolutely shitty thing to do, you know?
Seriously.
Thanks, Nintendo. Now I'm going to be mean to you this rest of this episode.
Or punch. We said
I
we're
take it
punchy at
back.
the top of it.
I hate Mario Kart.
I hate Super Circuit. Why do we do? What did I get myself into? I am happy we're talking about this game, though, in all seriousness, because some of the perusings I've seen online, almost everyone agrees this is one of those Mario Kart games that just doesn't get talked about a lot. Like, not a lot of people really, you know, if you're ranking Mario Kart Super Circuit Mario Kart games, Super Circuit is generally not really thought of that highly by the fan base, from my understanding. I will say the biggest thing that I noticed with this is just the sheer amount of tracks in this game. Like, holy shit.
Yeah.
It's just it's crazy. They made 20 original tracks for this. There's 5 cups, 4 tracks in each cup, followed by basically all the tracks from the previous games. I'm just in shock. Like, that's so much to cram into a single cartridge.
Yeah, it's impressive for sure. I couldn't really remember the tracks much booting this back up, so I was like, okay, I feel like I'm gonna probably play most of what was in the original Mario Kart, and it'll just be, you know, in the handheld version and a couple new ones here and there. And, you know, that's not entirely untrue, but yeah, like every time I opened up like the what's the one that sticks out to me here? I'm trying to figure out the name of it. Is it Cheeseland, I think?
Yeah.
I was like, wait, this is a stage? This is amazing. This is like so random. I would have thought this would be like an area that they would choose to make a track based off of, and I don't think they have since. And I'm like, this is crazy. This is awesome. It's not the greatest track in the world, but I was like, that's a great idea. I love it. I love the setting.
I mean,
just
they did re-release it in Mario Kart 8, just saying.
Right. But
they put
I don't
everything
think
in Mario Kart 8, though.
Yeah.
yeah. The Mario Kart 8 is essentially just, you know, it's GTA 5, right? It's just everything now. Yeah.
Sorry, what were you saying, Eric?
No, I was just going to say, too, it's rather impressive, too, because you get those 20 extra tracks from Super Mario Kart after you, like, master and complete, like, all of the regular Grand Prix. So, like, what a great surprise to have, like, a handheld Mario Kart game and to go through and, like, beat all the tracks and, like, master them and stuff. And then all of a sudden you just get 20 more tracks to play from the original Super Nintendo game. I mean, that's just, like, and back in that day and age too, like, that's insane. And to fit 40 tracks on a GBA cart, like, just incredible.
Now, what was your guys' experience in playing this? Like, in kind of revisiting it, how did it feel to control the carts? Did you notice any differences compared to other Mario Kart games that you've played, at least contemporary to this game? You know, like Double Dash. I know Double Dash came out after this, but, like, you know, Mario Kart games that would have been around at this time, the original 64, Double Dash, all that other stuff. Like, how did it feel? Eric, I'm going to start off with you. Like, how did it feel kind of controlling the game now? Like, did you notice any differences between this and, like, 64 or whatnot?
Yeah, so because of circumstances and, you know, King of Games and stuff like that, I've actually gone back and played now with Mario Kart Super Circuit, the first 3 Mario Karts, like, over the past year and a half. So it's been cool to kind of be able to have, like, that time to be able to compare them now that I've played Super Circuit. And honestly, in my opinion, you know, when I went back and played Super Mario Kart, Super Mario Kart.
Yep.
It felt a little bit like it slides a little bit, and there's not as much traction and stuff like that. It was still fun to play, but that was also one of my qualms with Mario 64. I think that Super Circuit plays the best out of these first three. I really feel like they kind of had everything tightened up by the time they got to the GBA, because I found playing this one the most enjoyable out of the three. I thought it controlled the best. I thought, the devastating catch-up AI was not present. Like, there were still racers there that would challenge you, and there's a set group of racers that are like your rivals based on like who you pick, and they will always be there to like challenge you as like the faster kart racer. But I just remember when I went back and played like Mario 64, if you got ahead just a little bit, the AI would just like kick into catch up mode and just like catch up to you almost instantly. And in this one, it felt like you were able to have like a little more breathing room, and it really rewarded you for like racing well. So my experience going back to this was like really, really, I thought it was awesome. Compared to some of the more like modern Mario Kart titles, I think Double Dash is a classic. Mario Kart Wii was amazing, and obviously I didn't play the one on DS, but Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is the most successful game on the Switch, right? It's an incredible title. This one was just I thought this one was the best out of like the pre-Double Dash, pre-3D era, and I don't even think Mario Kart's the best racer of this era. I think Crash Team Racing holds that trophy, but that's a hot take that I'll argue on a different podcast. So yeah, this was, I wasn't expecting much when I went back to play this, because I remembered it fondly from like playing it back on the GBA when I owned it, but I didn't expect it to impress me as much as it did.
I think it's kind of amusing you bring up Crash, and I know we're not going to talk about it too much. Obviously, we're on a Mario Kart Super Circuit episode.
Do you think he's a bandicoot? Sorry,
I don't know. I've heard word of like.
Is he a fox? No.
Yeah, I've heard this whole.
Sorry.
No listeners are going to understand this joke.
I'm sorry, that's an inside joke from the start. I apologize.
But it got me thinking. It would be a really fun episode. It doesn't even have to be of my show. It could be Unlockables if you want to use it for yours. I know you're taking hiatus soon, but do the great kart racer debate. Diddy Kong Racing versus Mario Kart 64 versus Crash Team Racing.
From the era of 3D.
It's Diddy Kong. So
all right. Sounds like you're coming on that episode with me then.
It's Diddy Kong. Sorry, it just is. Yeah. although I will say I don't have enough experience. I have some, but I don't have enough experience with Crash to say definitively that is not the one.
So that's fair. I don't have enough with Diddy, so I would be willing to go and check back and check out Diddy Kong Racing to see if I could be proved wrong. So
that I kind of want to have. You know what? I was talking with some people offline. The 10th anniversary of the show's coming up this year. That should be the 10th anniversary episode.
Oh my god!
I don't know.
You've had the show for 10 years.
Yeah, dude, it's going to be 10 years. Isn't that
wild, man? Wild.
Started it when I was 25, and now I'm an old 35.
How's that existential crisis treating you?
Well, I'm actually 34 right now. So when this comes out, I'll still be 34. Why did I say 35? By the time the 10th anniversary happens, I will be 35 right now.
There we go.
Yeah. But
35 years young.
Yeah, oh yes. Now, real quick before I throw it over to you, Dave, about how you felt how it controlled. Eric, you brought up the rivals. I did not know this was a thing in the original Super Mario Kart, just as I did not know it was a thing in this. But handily enough, the Mario Kart Wiki has a whole chart for you to see who, like, for whichever character you choose to race as. Which this, by the way, this roster is the same roster as Mario Kart 64. And depending on which character you choose, you have a whole set of the other racers are, they rank them from very fast to very slow. Now, what's funny is that there's very fast, medium, slow, and then very slow. And 3 of the racers are always going to be very slow no matter who you choose. Guess which racer? I'd have to double check to see if I'm correct with this, but guess which racer seems to appear the most out of all of them?
In the slow or in the fast?
On the very slow.
I say Bowser, probably, right?
I was
Bowser
going.
or Wario.
Yeah, I was gonna say Wario for just because, but I pulled this up earlier, but I don't remember what it is. I'm gonna pull it back up after you
Which shout out to the
reveal.
Mario wiki, because there was so much information on this game when I looked at it. Like
Yes.
it was nuts the amount of
Yes.
information they had.
Yeah.
I have to double check because there are a lot, but I believe it's Wario where
That makes
there's
sense.
a total of 8 racers. 6 out of the 8 racers, Wario is the slowest character, is in the very slow category for
Okay,
So
wah
I
noises.
so I just pulled it up. I just found it. So very slow. He is 4. He's 4. He's still the most, but he is 4.
well, no,
slow.
he has 6. He
One
shows
Oh.
it because the very slow is there's 3 columns in the very slow category.
Oh yeah, 5, 6. Yeah, you're right. 3 columns. Yeah. Oh yeah, he's by far the most.
Disrespect for my boy.
Honestly, and the weird. Okay, so that's weird, but also the weirdest part of this, I think, maybe I'm stepping on your toes a little bit, Josh, but
no, go for it.
The weirdest is, if you guys don't have it pulled up in front of you, who do you think his Wario's main rival is under the very fast category?
Well, I have it right in front of me, so I know. But Eric, do you want to guess? No pun intended. With
I
your
was
last
trying to
name.
pull it up, but I don't think I could in time. I'm gonna guess it's just something like off the wall, just like Toad or something, like somebody that wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense. It's Bowser. Like what? Why?
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Now it's funny. I was looking at who are the fastest rivals. Donkey Kong appears the most in the very fast lane. He appears twice, but like I said, there's very fast, medium, slow, and very slow. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Donkey Kong appears twice in very fast and only once in fast. Bowser appears in the very fast lane once.
Oh my god, he's all over there
3 times. But appears 3 times in the fast. So, who's the more deadly between the two? Donkey Kong appears twice, and so does Peach. Actually, so does Peach.
Yeah,
Peach shows up in the
there,
very fast as well. But she also is the same thing. She's only in the fast category once. So she has the exact same thing as Donkey. Shows up twice in the very fast, once in the fast. But meanwhile, Bowser is only once in the very fast and 3 times in fast. So that dude's all over the place.
And something else I noticed too that's funny, the title character of the game is never in the very fast or fast column.
Oh my god,
Mario's not there.
He's all over the slow. Yeah.
Hold on. If I'm reading this correctly, he's not even in the fast.
No.
He's not in very fast or fast. The fastest he gets is
in the
medium.
Column.
He's in the medium column for Bowser. Which
you think he would be the very fast? That would make the most sense.
And just like with Wario, it should also be Mario, I would think, right?
Oh my god!
Or maybe
Mario
Luigi,
slow
maybe
for
Peach. I don't know, but
who decided these?
Mario fucking owns the slow category. He appears 4 times.
Yes, he's consistent.
He's if nothing but consistent. Yeah.
Wow. He just can't go past medium. So that is just wild to think about. Yoshi seems to be the more overall one too. He appears once in the very fast, doesn't appear at all in the fast category, and then he's all over the medium and slows.
Yeah,
and then he is never in the very slow.
He's the most consistent.
Yeah. It's kind of fun seeing this. I like seeing this.
It's a great
breakdown.
It's great.
It really is.
The more I look at it, the more kind of just insane it is.
It really is. Because you don't necessarily think about it when you're in the middle of it, right? And be like, oh my god, Wario's always on my ass again. And then if you picked Luigi again, it would be Wario and Toad again and Yoshi. But you don't. I don't know. I never really, even in the original, I don't always think of it that way. But it does. Right. It does prevent a little bit, like you're saying, Eric, with the rubber banding part of it, which is usually a problem in a lot of kart racers, especially in 64, where it's it doesn't matter if you're 5 minutes ahead. In the last lap of the race, someone's going to be up your ass. It doesn't matter, right? And that is just the worst. I hate that feeling. And it's just the way that these games were programmed at that time. And the way that they have things broken up here, I think prevents that for the most part, or at least helps prevent that.
Yeah, Dave, I agree with you because in Mario Kart 64, it's like if you have a 30-second lead, then the entire pack turns into Prime Jeff Gordon and will just catch up to you no matter what. It's literally impossible. And I always play as Yoshi. That's my go-to guy in Mario Kart since the day I was born. And every single Grand Prix, I was like, Peach is always like in second place trying to catch up to me. So yeah, I think it definitely solves the rubber banding issue. I much prefer this system over the just everybody, the entire field just rubber banding catches up to you. Or even like Super Mario Kart, I believe, like when the field was behind you, they would have unlimited items that they would just bombard you with, and
Yes.
it's just an onslaught, and there's nothing you could do. So I think this is really the best iteration of this system so far.
That seems to be a consensus with a lot of people. What is it? I was watching a Scott the Woz video on the kind of the balance of this game with the items and everything, and how the racers work and whatnot. And I'm not an expert in Mario Kart, which is kind of why I'm doing this series. And at the end of the series, I still won't be an expert, but I at least a little
Don't
bit
sell
more.
yourself short. Come on.
Oh, I definitely won't be an expert. I can tell you that. But he mentioned how like in this one, it felt this was like the last version of like quote unquote classic Mario Kart in the sense because not because of the visuals or anything like that, but it didn't have like the items that would suddenly, like the bullet bill item that would just launch you up to the beginning to the front of the pack or like super far ahead, where there was not as many items that can completely affect the order of the race. Like if you're in first place, you're going to be in first place for the most part, and if you're in last place, you can obviously with good racing get up to first place, but you have to really work at it. Versus in later Mario Karts, it's a lot more chaotic. You really don't know who's going to end up in first or last if everyone's at a relatively similar skill level, because the last place person can just get that one power up that's going to fucking demolish everything and move them up the ranks. So I thought that was really a really interesting observation. Would you guys agree with that from your experience with the Mario Kart games?
Yeah, I think actually, Eric, when you brought up, as much as I love the original Mario Kart, there is that whole aspect they have where whoever's behind you, or at least maybe the two characters that are behind you, just have items that they throw in front of you, which is not even a thing that you can do. Like it's not even an ability that you're able to do in the game. So it's like, Toad's behind you and he throws a little mushroom on the ground. Yoshi's behind you, throws a little egg, and they basically act like they act like banana peels, and it's like, really, what, I get it, I guess, but then there's also rubber banding. So I understand that part, but this, the way that this is implemented is definitely, especially with this era of this franchise, is the right way to do it. Just plain and simple, I think.
Yeah, I was gonna say too. I think you kind of look at, like you said, there's a little bit more skill in this version of Mario Kart, and I think as we see the years go on, and I don't know if this is an app comparison, but I kind of see the same thing that happened too after Smash Bros. Melee, where all of a sudden like you could be like really good at these games, but that isn't really the purpose of like a Mario Kart or a Smash or a Nintendo party game, right? It's for everybody to be able to play together and everybody to have fun regardless of your skill level. So in later Mario Kart and Smash titles, they really kind of keyed into like that play chaos, right? Where they put in all these other items and they gave people all these different ways to like be good, so that even if you're like the worst racer to ever play Mario Kart, you can still win sometimes with the help of some of those more chaotic items, like you said, the bullet bill or the infamous blue shell that is the bane of everybody who's ever been in first place. So yeah, I think you can really see like a shift in philosophy from this point onward. I still think Double Dash is pretty competitive, but as you progress through like the arc of 3D Mario Karts, it definitely tries to hone in on the emphasis of the chaos helps everybody kind of be on equal footing. Whereas, yeah, like in Super Circuit, by the end, I found myself, I was like, oh, I'm actually like pretty decent at this. And I know I'm just racing against CPUs and AI, but even like 150cc is pretty fast and pretty brutal in that game. So that's just kind of, when I think about it, kind of hearing you guys talk about it now, it's kind of where my mind goes to. I don't know if that's the right analysis or not, but.
And I mean, I don't know.
As experts, we would say, absolutely, yes sir.
I think it's a good analysis. Now, moving on to some of the tracks, what was
Mhm.
some of your favorite tracks in the game that you got to play? I honestly don't have that much of an opinion on any of the tracks. I that's the thing. The reason why I've said before I'm not a big Mario Kart fan. Like some tracks are fine, but like I generally just I none really stick with me. I think the most recent Mario Kart game that I played that like legitimately like when I played I was like wow this is like actually a lot of fun was Mario Kart 8, and I haven't really said that about almost any other Mario Kart I've played. Not saying this is bad once mind you, but it's just to me it's hard for me to remember any of the tracks. I if anything, just because I played a lot of the Mushroom Cup tracks just in preparation for this, I like Shy Guy Beach well enough. I always
Mhm.
was kind of a fan of like kind of like the island hopping type of thing, and but other than that, like not a whole lot of levels really or tracks, excuse me, stick out to me. But what about you guys? I want to throw it over to you, Eric, since Dave answered first last time. Like any tracks that really kind of stick out to you? Any ones that you enjoy playing?
So I think in terms of tracks that stuck out to me, there wasn't really anything that kind of like grabbed my attention. If I was to pick a couple of my favorites, every Mario Kart, I always pick Rainbow Road because I'm one of the sickos that just likes the chaos and skill of Rainbow Road. I've never met a Rainbow Road that I didn't like. Some of them have like iconic landscapes, like Dave mentioned Cheeseland earlier in the episode. And I just like Cheeseland isn't like necessarily a great track by itself, but just the place where it's located, like Cheeseland.
Yeah,
Like what the hell is Cheeseland? I think that's great. So it made it kind of
those
memorable.
little mice. I love it.
Yes, exactly. And I think some of the tracks that have those more different locations are kind of the ones that caught my attention. So like Cheeseland in the Flower Cup, Sky Garden is one that sticks out to me in the Thunder Cup, which I think they would do again in Mario Kart 8, iteration on that. Ribbon Road was really cool. It's like literally like presents and ribbons and stuff like that. But I think in the tracks in general, the issue I had with a lot of the tracks was like they were all just flat straightaways and turns and stuff. And I know this is kind of a limitation of the medium because now we have like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe where you turn into a hover car and you're upside
Yeah.
down and like all this chaos that you can get through 3D. So I think that was like my one main nitpick where I was just kind of like every track is just straightaways and turns set in their location and doesn't really utilize the location well. Like there's 4 Bowser's Castle tracks in the 5 cups, and
Yeah.
and those are
Yeah.
just like straightaways and right angle turns in different configurations. And I was just kind of like, all right, you've seen one Bowser's Castle, you've seen them all. So that's just kind of my brief take on the tracks. But I'm just imagining like as a kid having this in your pocket, being able to carry all this with you, like race all these different tracks, and then have all the tracks that came afterwards would have like blown my mind. So I think that's probably this game's biggest weakness is just the track variety and just kind of how the tracks are laid out. But I still think it's good for what it is.
What about you, Dave?
I've said this before. I don't know if it was. I don't even know where I've said it. But anyways, I've been on the record
The
previous. I
curse
don't
of
know.
a podcaster.
It's just my. You think you're tired? Oh boy. I don't know if this because I've heard through like friends growing up and stuff like I really don't like these kinds of stages in Mario Kart or whatever. But for me, I've always enjoyed in both like Super Mario World, like the actual game, not Mario Kart, and then Mario Kart in general, pretty much across the board. I've always really liked like the Haunted and Boo levels.
Mhm.
Okay.
I just like that they like Eric, you mentioned the Rainbow Road chaos that can be created in a lot of the versions of those races. I think those Boo stages are also like that because most of them, not all, but most of them have sections on the wall that when you hit it or when something hits it, now there's a gap in the wall. So if you make that same mistake
Yeah.
twice, boom, you're off the stage and you're way behind. I like that little added thing where you have to make sure that you don't race exactly the same if you made a mistake previously in your lap. So I really like that.
Hmm.
And I do enjoy the fact that they've put them in a handheld version here, and they're 2 versions that you haven't played previously. They're original in this, and I found them pretty good. And I've always really liked the sort of creepy music. It always sounds like your car or your cart is like squeaking across the floor and stuff. And I just
Yeah.
that stuff just hits with me for some reason, and it felt good to play these stages in this. So I remain a Boo Lake and Boo setting fan in the Mario Kart series. For sure. So those are the ones that stood out to me the most. But I will say I agree with the Ribbon Road choice as well. I thought that was crazy unique, and I thought that was a lot of fun too.
What honestly, like looking at the list again of all the different tracks in here, know what this game's like track, I guess, variety reminds me of? Kind of what they did in Mario Odyssey almost, where like Mario Odyssey had a lot of unique worlds that you would never really see in a Mario game.
Yeah.
Like what's the Food Kingdom with all
Oh,
the sweets and
the
everything?
Luncheon
Yeah.
Kingdom.
The Luncheon
Yeah.
Kingdom.
Right.
Like I feel like things like Ribbon Road and Cheeseland and what's it?
Jeez.
It's so wild.
Also,
It's me every
also just the
time.
name. It could just be some shop down the street, like Cheeseland.
Sunset Wilds, like it's a Looney Tunes, like a road, like a
Yup.
like a wild Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner. Like there's a bunch of stuff. Yoshi Desert, even like there's a bunch of stuff in here that it feels like it's a little bit more varied. And from my understanding, based off what you guys said, as well as that Scott the Woz video, just because I haven't played enough of these tracks to really form an opinion of it. I've played through a handful of the cups, but I didn't really get too far because there's a bunch of goddamn Mario Kart games. I can't. I'm not. I would go crazy if I just went through every single one after the other, right after saying I'm not a huge kart racing fan. So I want to stay happy for this, listeners. But
think happy thoughts.
But from my understanding, like it was impressive how many levels they were able to add to this game, or included the 20 brand new levels. Or tracks. That's amazing.
Yeah.
But a lot of them don't seem that memorable. I think the ideas behind them are really unique and memorable, but then once again, not all of them. Like you said, there's 4 goddamn Bowser castles in this, so it's like let's just do it again. Bring the band back together. We're doing it a third time. But it just, I don't know. I some of these ideas just kind of remind me of what they did in Mario Odyssey, just like these really unique things that you wouldn't typically see in this style game. Like you're not getting just your water level and your plains level and your volcano level and your castle. You're getting Cheeseland. And who doesn't want mice? Come on.
I will say one of the only downsides I found with the tracks is that some of them, I can't remember exactly which ones. I mean, this is the case for especially the original Mario Kart. Some of them are just a little too short. Like some of them you can go through the entire race in 3 minutes. And in some ways that's an advantage. You're playing on a handheld. You don't have save states at this point when this game came out and all that. Like that's just not a thing. You could do it on the Switch Online, which is great. But, to pick up and play and do an entire cup in, let's say 15, maybe less than 20 minutes, depending on which one you're doing. I guess there's an advantage to that. But some of them I was like, oh, I actually want to experience this track longer. It's a shame that it's already over. Or I can't believe I just did the flower cup in 15 minutes. I wish there was one more race or something. So I felt that a little bit. I think more on the mushroom and flower ones a little bit. But other than that, even if they're not overly memorable, most of them, I still found them pretty good. And yes, there are 4 Bowser Castle levels. But again, just like with the Boo and the haunted stages, like Broken Pier was another one. That's what I was trying to think of before. I like Bowser Castle stages. I find them to be pretty fun. Maybe there could be one less, fair enough. But generally, I like the way that they're. I don't know. Maybe it's the somewhat simplicity, or maybe it's just the setting or the music.
Right.
I don't know what it is, but for the most part, those ones work too. But yeah, some of them just felt a little too short.
I would say that probably my nitpicks with the tracks are probably more due to the limitation of the medium rather than like the design intention behind them. Because I just think that being on the Game Boy Advance, you probably got to keep things more simple. But just if I look at the track list, like none of these jumps out to me as like icon status, like the ones we've come to know and love like over the years. Like, well, I mean, obviously Rainbow Road is there, but I'm just thinking about like Coconut Mall or Toad's Turnpike or Waluigi Pinball, or just the ones that if you're making a list of like the best Mario Kart tracks ever, like would be up there. I probably wouldn't see too many of these on there. And the thing I love about Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is it brings a lot of these tracks into the game and reinvents them in ways that are like really, really cool and puts like a really, really unique spin on them. But again, that's a game that's like 15 years in the future and has the benefit of modern technology. So
yeah, absolutely. And being out for the last, 15 years at this point? Like, it's just...
it been, yeah, right. For as long as it's been out. Yeah, exactly.
Real quick, by the way, there's not just 4 Bowser's Castles. If you include the extra tracks from the other ones, there's actually 7 total.
Yes.
Man, Bowser's just running amok around this place, isn't he? Jeez.
It really is. And then there is actually 5 Mario Circuits. There's Mario Circuit from the Flower Cup. And then in the additional tracks, there's Mario Circuit 1, Mario Circuit 2, Mario Circuit 3, Mario Circuit... Actually, I'm sorry, there's 6. There's 5. Mario Circuit 4.
Yeah.
There's
oh my God.
5 Mario Circuits total. There's at least 3 donut planes. Is there any donut planes in the main game?
Yeah. In the, you're just talking about like mainline Mario,
the main 20 tracks.
No, they're not.
No. So there's
that was a
3
Super
donut
Mario Kart
planes,
thing.
2 Choco Islands. There's just a lot of repeat titles. Oh, Koopa Beach. There's at least Koopa Beach 1 and 2. I think. I don't fucking... Anyway. Yeah, there's 2. Anyway.
But for me, the inclusion of the tracks from Super Mario Kart, I think, is cooler. Kind of outweighs the repetitiveness of them because it's like you get like 40 extra tracks, and then
it's cool to have
40 tracks to take with you like on the go.
That's insane.
Insane.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as much as I'm just kind of joking at like making fun of it, I don't mean that it's serious. Like, I don't even mean it as a legitimate criticism. It's just, it's just funny that they did 7 different versions of the same theme, but the tracks are different. The tracks are different. That's not to say it's the same track over and over and over again. I'm also a fan. I also like, it's not one of those things where, how like sometimes there'll be 2 tracks, but the one track is just a longer version of the smaller one. Like Final Fantasy VII, when you do the Chocobo racing, the short track is like one thing, and then the long track is the same thing, except they just block off one portion of they block off the short section, which is a shortcut.
It's under construction. Yeah.
So it's like they only had to design 1.5 tracks in order to... or 1 full track and just make a little shortcut and be like, well, it's 2 now. But
listen, Josh, some people say that Final Fantasy VII is the best kart racer of that era. So, I mean...
Chocobo Racing had its own game.
Yeah. You're right. It did.
Oh, my God.
That will add it to the debate.
Add it to the list, everybody.
I do like, as another an aside, I do like looking at the track formations and seeing what things you can see in the formation. Like if you look at the bird's eye view of like the track layout, like what does this look like? This one looks like a U. This one looks like Texas. This one looks like Cheap Island kind of looks like a flaccid dick.
Interesting.
Like in the negative space in the center. So there you go.
So there's that,
that's a plus.
At least it's got something going for it, I guess. Well, actually, no, it'd be the opposite. It's got nothing going for it. Never mind.
Right. Yeah.
1 point to Mario Kart Super Circuit. Yes. All right, let's move on to to battle courses. Did you guys do anything with the battle courses? Because that also is a way to tie into the multiplayer. This game had, like other Mario Kart games, has multiplayer. I didn't know this. So I knew you could link 4 Game Boy Advances together and play multiplayer that way. What I didn't know is that you only needed 1 kart. You could actually play kind of like a modified version of the game, and as long as 1% of the kart, the other 3 people did not need it. However, it only had 4 tracks total to race on, and you only had 4 characters to choose from. If everyone has a copy of the cartridge, then the entire game is at your disposal for multiplayer. But if only 1 person has the cartridge, then you are at a disadvantage. You can only have 4 tracks and 4 racers, which I did not know. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's a crazy setup for that time, to be able to just have 1 cart everybody play on the same one. I think that's pretty cool. Like, yeah, sure, there's limitations to it, but that's pretty damn cool at that time.
Kind of be a way to like peer pressure your friends into getting the game too. Be like, oh, if
Right.
you had the game, we could all play
We
the
could all
actual
play
version of it.
Bowser's Castle 4.
Right? Yeah.
Or 17.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't play any of the battle ones this time around. But I thoroughly enjoyed playing them growing up on Super Mario Kart. I'll tell you that. So I assume in a way it would feel somewhat similar. I know that the gameplay obviously is not exactly the same feeling, but I didn't pick it up this time. I just went through all of the cups. I think I went through all the cups like 3 times or something. So
Oh, wow.
oh yeah, no man, you put me in front of a Mario Kart, I'm not going to put it down for a few days. I'm all for it.
I'm in the same boat. I didn't check out the battle tracks either. I do have
It is a little hard to do
Yeah.
when you don't have multiplayer. Like,
I
you
do
know,
have
unless
faint
you have a
memories
friend to
of-
get a cable and come over and
Yeah.
play.
I do have faint memories of utilizing the Game Boy Advance, the link cable for the multiplayer. Like there's faint memories in there. I know I did it for Super Circuit. I know my friend and I did it for Advance Wars, and obviously, Pokemon was the poster child for the link cable. So I have faint memories of it in there. But yeah, I would assume the same thing for Super Mario Kart. Played the heck out of the battle mode there. So I would assume it's a similar experience. I do know that the 4 battle tracks are completely new to the
Yes.
series, so they at least made new battle tracks.
I don't have much else to say about the gameplay at all. I do want to at least touch on the music of the game. I mean, you got to talk about music in a Mario Kart game. The series is known for some of the best music out there. I actually really like even just like the intro, the title screen track. I think is really good. It's really that's what you heard as like the intro to the instead of like a cold open quote or what the fuck tagline. That's the word I'm looking for. Instead of a tagline, you heard the song, a little bit of the song there, a little bit of the music sting. But yeah, the soundtrack in this is fantastic. What do you guys think though? What are some of your favorite songs?
I'm going to go back to the tracks I was talking about before. Any of those
Bowser's
those-
4.
What's that?
Bowser's Castle 4, yeah.
Bowser Castle 4.
Bowser's Castle, yeah.
Specifically Bowser's Castle 4.
4. If you bring up any other Bowser's Castle, no, I always really like the creepy vibe of the of the ghost, the Boo levels and stuff. Ghost Valley is the name of them in like the originals. But I just like the classic Mario songs, so anything that's going to be like whoever's circuit, Mario Circuit or Luigi Circuit, those ones kind of get me bopping in my seat. So those are the ones that, again, I don't know, because I didn't grow up playing this constantly as much as some people. I think that they haven't stuck with me yet, but I also haven't played these 500 times like I did with the original game. So it's kind of hard to compare, but I enjoyed the music. I don't know that it, like the tracks, I don't know that they necessarily stand out as like iconic, the music to me, but it definitely was stuff that I enjoyed as I was playing it. So there's that. I guess that's something.
I'm kind of with you on that too. Like the music doesn't always stand out to me, but that's not always a bad thing.
Yes,
it's
I
kind of
agree.
like good sound design. Like good sound design, a game has good sound design when you don't notice it.
Yep.
Because it's only when it's bad you're like, oh, why would they use that sound? That doesn't sound accurate at all. What's with this music? It's awful. This has good music. Sorry, Eric, your turn. You're up.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as Bowser Castle 4. Like that's like top tier of all time, probably. No, obviously Rainbow Road is always a classic. I mean, that's kind of become one of the most iconic tunes. Like Dave said, the Mario and Luigi Circuit. I don't think they're iconic on this game specifically, but they would go on to be iconic and are like 2 of the most recognizable tracks for sure. And yeah, I love the way that like Boo Lake and those spookier levels utilize the music to like create this atmosphere, because I think that this game and Mario Kart specifically do a great job of creating atmosphere and the sense of like that kart racing feel with its music. And just, I don't have a lot to say on the music of Super Circuit specifically, but I just think that the GBA in general, I think to me the music that comes from the GBA in general and whatever sound chip it was, they're coming through those speakers, is just like there's something so nostalgic about it, whether it's Super Circuit or whenever I play Advance Wars or Fire Emblem. Like when I hear that music coming through my GBA, when I still have an original GBA in the carts for some of these games, it's just so nostalgic. It takes me back to a time when I was younger, and happier and less crushed as an adult. But yeah, I think the music would get better as the series went on. Super Circus music is great for what it is. It's a package.
It really is. And I think Mario Kart in general, man, like I really, as much as I joke around and I say like, the games never really impacted me all that much, that while that is true, and I would never claim to be a big Mario Kart fan, one thing that the Mario Kart games consistently do, like even to this day, is they just make me feel happy. Like they make me feel nostalgic for something that I never really got to experience at
Mhm.
all. Mario Kart, in all honesty, is a little bit of misplaced nostalgia. I actually did a Patreon bonus episode all about this. Misplaced nostalgia, the idea that uh it's the idea that you feel nostalgic for something you didn't personally get to experience,
Yeah.
and Mario Kart kind of is that for me, and that's kind of why one of like in all seriousness, like I wanted to cover the Mario Kart games for this because of the lack of familiarity with them and the lack of like being able to understand where people's love of the series comes from. And I've been enjoying like exploring them so far, but it's definitely a bit of misplaced nostalgia because I'll hear the music from it, or I will see the track. I'll see like the visuals from it, like especially with like Super Mario Kart and Mario Kart Super Circuit. Um, like just the visuals of that really hit me in like a nostalgia spot, even though I didn't play them as a kid. The only one I played as a kid was Mario Kart 64, and even that I didn't touch much.
Oh,
But
that's a shame. Oh, that's the one you
I
were stuck with. Oh no.
what what was the I do have some memories of Double Dash, but that will be next week's episode, so I will save
Ah,
that for next week's episode.
If
But
I can say
yeah,
one more thing about the music in general, so
yeah,
I know
go
you're.
for it.
It just this is kind of like just a tangent for the music of Mario Kart in general. So, some of these tracks have reached like meme statuses lately. Like when I'm scrolling Instagram, like the videos or stuff, like I see Coconut Mall is basically like a meme at this point. But there's I forget where it is, and I hate that I don't remember, but. I've seen it several times scrolling through TikTok. There is a bar where they have Mario Kart night, and the caveat to this Mario Kart night is they turn the sound off from the game completely, and they have a live band play the music from the
oh, I
games
saw that the
while
other
they're playing
day.
Mario
Oh
Kart
my
8
god.
Deluxe,
Oh
and
my
it's
god.
it's so fucking cool. Like if I find it, if I find a TikTok, Josh, I'll send it to you, and it's just it would be such a cool experience. And they even play like when the star someone does a star, like they play the star theme, and when it gets to the last lap, they like speed up the music, they speed up their playing. It's so cool. So I just wanted to shout that out. If you go and look it up on TikTok, go like do like Mario Kart live music or something like that, and you'll find it.
That's
And it's
really
just
awesome.
it's one of the coolest ideas ever.
Yeah, it like we're sitting here talking about a GBA game, and that's what people are also doing while we're doing
Yes.
this. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, right. We could be there.
we what- why aren't we doing that? No.
Yes.
It's insanely, and also it just shows you that this franchise goes so far beyond anything that we could even you could even cover when it comes to like extended podcasts and playing
Yeah.
this and talking about your history with these games and stuff. Like it's so much more than that, and it is just so much fun that Mario Kart has continued to be that way. And I think a game like Super Circuit is right in the middle of it. Like
Mhm.
Mhm.
it's this improvement in some ways, and it's a stepping stone in others. And sure, a lot of the games you could say are that too, but I don't know that Double Dash is its own sort of mechanic, I guess, the whole game itself. But
Yeah.
and obviously on a different console and everything. But like, I don't know, do you have what they did in Double Dash and on the other versions just after it, like without something like this?
Mm.
Because this has different ideas, different approaches than the ones previous to it. And I think that it's, yeah, it's on a handheld, but it's still your ideas still move into other dimensions and other consoles going forward, even if they're also not on handhelds. I think this one's like a really good, like, it hit at a time that they needed to have ideas like this put together, even if they're
Mhm.
small ones, even if they're small ideas. Those small ideas can grow into something that's bigger and better. And I think that's what happened going forward from this. It's like that perfect title for that. And then because you have titles like this, you have experiences like that where bands are playing stuff live and everything, because all the people that are at that bar probably could have had this as their very first Mario Kart.
Right. And I want to I just thought of this while Dave was saying that, because Dave's point that's a fucking awesome point right there. Even though I don't have a like for like Mario Kart 64, and even though like Super Mario Kart might not be my favorite, I I'd be hard pressed to say there was ever a Mario Kart title that set the series back. The spirit of Mario Kart is very much iterative, and it feels like
Mm-hmm.
every title improved on what came before. Like from here you go to Double Dash, and from Double Dash you go to Wii, and then you go to the
Well,
DS version, and then those kind of,
yeah.
Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is kind of like the distillation of like all of that into like probably the most definitive version of Mario Kart. I can't say there was ever a Mario Kart game that came out and was just like set the series back with detrimentally. I don't think there has been one. I think every game is improved on the one that's come before it.
Well, and when you have a formula that works as well as Mario Kart does, like it's a winning formula, regardless of my feelings on the games. Like it's funny, sometimes I'll talk about a game and just be like, I almost become like hipsterish about it, about my dislike of it, where it's like I want to dislike it just for the sake of disliking it. I don't feel that way with Mario Kart. Like it's one of those series where it's like it just never resonated with me, but I want it to resonate so bad, because every time I play it, I like everything aesthetically. I like the music. I like how the control feels. The items are always interesting, and with this one, I enjoyed getting to kind of try out kind of like that 2D mode 7 thing again. Like I actually really like those visuals a lot. And I think this game's actually super colorful too. I really like
Oh yeah.
like it's very vibrant. But I think this is a good way to move into kind of final thoughts. Like we've already been kind of soliloquizing, whatever, soliloquies. But we've already been kind of talking about Mario Kart nebulously and about our thoughts about the series and this game, and whatnot. But I think it's a good way to move into our kind of like final thoughts on this game and how it stands out. So like in both of your opinions, and I'm going to throw it over to you first, Dave. In your opinion, where does this game stand in the pantheon of other Mario Kart titles? Like, I think that actually might be interesting to like wrap up with, like give your final thoughts on it, and just out like where does it stand? Like, is it one of your favorites? Do you think it stands lower? I would normally give a thing about, I would normally I did it with the Mario Kart 64 episode for people to share their personal thoughts and opinions, but no one really wrote in for this one. um, Not surprising, like I said, that not a lot of, like, I actually had it with little behind the scenes that we were going to record this a couple weeks ago, but stuff happened, and I actually put up on Instagram a poll like, hey, send me your memories, we'll read it on air. Nobody wrote in. No one wrote in on the Discord. No one wrote. So like, at least I don't remember if anyone wrote in. I'd feel really bad if I forgot to save it after all this time. But yeah, so I didn't really have much to do that. So I figure a better way to end the episode than that would just be to ask both of you, like, where does it stand in the pantheon of Mario Kart games? So Dave, throwing it over to you, just kind of some final thoughts that maybe you didn't share prior, and where does it stand in the pantheon of Mario Kart games?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, like I was just saying a few minutes ago, I think it's right in the middle of that iteration path that we were just talking about, and I think that does play into where it might sit. I have this like really strong nostalgia for the original one, so it's going to be my favorite. Is it the best? No, that's fine. I'm okay with that, but it's just like that's my childhood is playing that one. But this one is up there for sure. I don't know if I have like an official ranking. I do think that even though I also have limited experience because I never owned a GameCube, I do think that like Double Dash is probably right up there because it has that really original idea that I think needs to come back, in my opinion. But unless it is the original and Double Dash, this one is up there for sure. This is like top. I mean, how many do they have now? Is there 8 now, or is there like 10 at this point? This is in the top. I'm not gonna say top 3 because I do think Mario Kart 8 is probably the best one. because it's just got everything like we've discussed, and just keeps getting bigger and better in a lot of ways and feels great and everything. But this is right beside it. I think it's a lot of fun. It might not have the most memorable tracks, but and the music, I mean, all the things we've talked about maybe don't stand above some of the others, but I just think the gameplay itself is what makes it stay up there as one of the better ones for sure, and definitely a really good jump, and I think massive improvement from Mario Kart 64, and feels kind of at home because it feels a little bit like Super Mario Kart the original, and I love that too. So I like this game. There is one thing that I want to say that I didn't like about it, that I thought that completely slipped my mind earlier, that might not put it higher up in the rankings, is when you're going through the cups and they give you a letter ranking at the end of it. I don't know why they have to do that. I feel like I'm kicking ass and then they give me a C. I won. I won, and I have like 100 coins or whatever the hell gives you your better letter. I have no idea what that system is. I didn't even look it up. I should have. Maybe it would piss me off more if I knew what the answer was, but I'm like, I don't understand. I have like as many coins as I could possibly do by winning these races at the same time. Like, what do you want? I came first every single time. Why am I not getting at least a B? Like, what is this, high school all over again? I don't understand. So aside from that, I think the rest of the gameplay choices in this are an improvement and a lot of fun, and it's in the upper tier for me, this one.
Eric, what about you? Your final thoughts, and where does it stand in the pantheon of Mario Kart games?
Yeah, Pantheon's tricky. There's a couple different ways you can look at it because I think like Dave and I kind of said, each game does feel iterative and generally improves on the one before it. Doesn't mean that the previous games are bad at all. One little caveat I do want to talk about is it's surprising to me that nobody had any thoughts to write in on this, because when you look at the sales numbers for games on the GBA, this game sold almost 6 million units, making it the fourth best selling game on the Game Boy Advance.
Oh my God.
I'll give you one guess what the top three games were. Just take a guess.
Super Mario Brothers, like the advanced one, like 3, 2, or one of those.
Okay.
The one that has Super Mario World in it is the one that I would guess.
That's like Super Mario Advance.
This is the highest selling Mario game on the Game Boy Advance. The next three, the top three titles, are all Pokemon.
Oh, okay.
So this is the best Mario title on the Game Boy Advance, and Ruby and Sapphire, and that was Fire Red and Leaf Green. That was that generation, and those sold like over 10 million units. So obviously this was in the middle of the Pokemon craze. Those games just crushed anything that came out in the same year. But this was the most popular non-Pokemon game on the Game Boy Advance. So I'm just surprised that nobody had any memories of it, because even back then the power of Mario Kart was very evident. I think in terms of just like the most definitive product, it's probably Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. That doesn't mean it's my favorite. I kind of mark my favorite Mario Karts on like the mark that they left on me, kind of like the impact when I kind of think about them. And for me, number one is Double Dash, because I never owned a GameCube and I only got to spend a very limited time with that game. But the impact that it made on me while I did have time to spend with it leaves no doubt in my mind that Double Dash is like my favorite Mario Kart experience. Then it's probably Mario Kart Wii, just because that was just such a fun party game, and the Wii was just like this. It was a console built around playing with your friends, and Mario Kart Wii was just like tailored to that experience.
Mm-hmm.
After those two, it would probably be Super Circuit, because I have a lot of fond memories of this game. And I know people are like, oh, we're ranking games in critical, you shouldn't consider nostalgia and stuff. And I'm like, well, I do. I like to think about how I felt playing the game. And I have very fond memories of this game. It's the reason why when you offered me a couple games, I jumped at the chance to do this one when I said I didn't play the DS Mario Kart. So yeah, I would say this is easily top three for sure. In terms of like a product, again, Mario Karts iterate on themselves. So obviously the things that come before, like on just a technical graphical level, are going to be better. But just for the way they made me feel, like this is top three for sure. So, and I'm glad I got to experience and kind of remember that, because this game had kind of faded in my mind before I replayed it. And the thoughts I had of like my GBA are very heavily dominated by Fire Emblem and Advance Wars and Pokemon, of course. But every kid in my age was into Pokemon back then. So, but this allowed me to re-experience a game that I hadn't really given a lot of thought to the last probably decade or 12 years of my life, and I loved it. And it brought back a lot of great feelings. So yeah, top 3 easily for me.
Out of the 3 games that I have played in preparation for this series, the original Super Mario Kart or Super Mario Kart, Mario Kart 64, and this, man, I don't know how I'd rank them because I'm kind of doing it as I go, right? Like I haven't played. I've dabbled in Double Dash. That's actually that'd be like a fun podcast name. Dabbled in Double Dash.
That should be it. You got yourself a title, sir.
Right? Seriously, wow.
You dealing some of that Double Dash on the street, Josh?
No, it's
Dabbling
it's
in
a
it?
podcast dedicated to people playing Double Dash for the first time. They dabble in Double Dash. And
I like it.
It's like 15-minute episodes of just like, hey, what'd you think of it? I was like, yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
That'll be the whole show. But no, with this, I would have to say, oh man, mechanically, I actually thought I could control Mario Kart 64 a little bit better than this. I would actually probably give it to the first one. The original Mario Kart is my number 1, probably followed by Mario Kart 64 than this, but it's like 64 and this could be transposed. Like you could switch them around, but Mario Kart 1, I like that the most because when I've done preparation for all of those, I kept going back to play the original Super Mario Kart, and I didn't for these. I don't know what it was about the original Super Mario Kart that like kind of clicked with me, but so far that's been the one that I've enjoyed the most. But yeah, I mean, I don't really have much more to add to the final thoughts. It's a good solid first entry in the portable era of Mario Kart. It's a great game, first time for Mario Kart being portable. It's got some fun tracks, it's got good music. For some reason I think it kind of fed into the whole issue that a lot of people on the internet talk about, where it didn't click with me that much, so it's hard for me to really like feel attached to it, so I don't know. That's not a criticism of the game. It's one of those things where it's like I can look at the game like this is all competently made, and then like I can't remember a damn thing about it, and that's kind of like what it feels like to me. But
yeah, but Josh, if I can just say too, we've had this discussion as well. It's like just because you're saying the game's not for me doesn't mean you don't realize its place in history or you're taking anything away from it. And I like that you're doing this for Mario Month because we've had that discussion before where you and I have talked about like, oh, we don't like Dark Souls, it's not for us, but we're not taking anything away from Dark Souls. We realize how important of a game and a series it is. So
yeah, though with Dark Souls, I do get a little hipsterish and I want to tear it down with every fiber of my being, but I don't do that because I know I'm wrong. Like I like not even saying that to be nice. Like I know I'm wrong. I get to one of those things where it's like I've been told it's like one of the best games ever, and then I play it, and then I have all these. I'm not going to rehash it. I'm not going to relitigate it. One of these days, I will actually beat that game, and then I can tear it apart on an episode. Until then, I'm not allowed to. That's a rule I'm going with. But let's wrap up this episode, y'all. Dave, Eric, thank you so much for joining me on this. Like, this was one of the most fun episodes I've recorded in a while. I had no offense to my previous guests, I don't mean anything by that, but I had a blast.
We can offend them if you want, if that makes it easier.
Previous guest.
Yeah, I hate all of you. I'm just talking about myself. I'm the previous guest I hate. I'm in every episode. That's the common denominator. But no, seriously, thank you both for joining me. This was a really fun episode. So let's do shout outs. Let's talk about where the good people can find you online. So Eric, as our returning Mario Month guest, let's throw it over to you. Where can the good people find you online? And is there anything you would like to promote?
First, Josh, I gotta say thank you for having me back once again. Mario Month is even better the second time. And the first time I talked about a pretty big Mario game, Mario Galaxy, and I had even more fun coming back to talk about Super Circuit. Who would have thought that? But my name is Eric. I host the Unlockables Podcast, which I built as the story of video games, people who play them, and the memories made along the way. These days, I've been focusing on my pretty comprehensive dive into the Kingdom Hearts series, and by the time this episode comes out, my latest episode, actually a couple episodes might be out, but the latest episode on Dream Drop Distance for the 3DS will be out. And we only after that have 5 more Kingdom Hearts games to go, and we're done with the entire series. And having a little bit of an existential crisis about that. So if you want to find me, you can go to linktr.ee/unlockables podcast. All my stuff is there. Links to my Twitter, my Instagram. I have a small Discord if you feel so inclined to join and just kind of chat. We talk about games and sports and stuff in there. And you can hear me just rant about this weird Final Fantasy Disney game that I've kind of become known for ranting about.
Hey man, I love your Guiding Keys episodes. I always enjoy them when I listen to them. Seriously worth checking out. It is a fantastic series, and it's one of the best deep dives on Kingdom Hearts out there, if not the best, in my opinion. But
you're too kind.
Yeah, I am. I know. No,
You're right. You're right.
You're right. It's not that.
Please tell me about how great I am.
Dude,
Yes.
I'm in such a weird headspace. I don't know. Oh my god. Dave, throwing it over to you. Where can the good people find you online, and is there anything you'd like to promote?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you know what? Talking about this era of games, the N64 was right around this time. It was just on its way out when Super Circuit was released. I mentioned Paper Mario. I mentioned the show earlier, but remember 64. I am going through every single game of the Nintendo 64's library. The way that I like to put it is that I'm going to cover the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between, because there is a whole lot of that when it comes to this console. It's not my favorite console, but I find it to be a very interesting one, which is why I started the show in the first place. So yes, we have covered a lot of heavy hitters. We've Jet Force Gemini, Mario 64, Mario Kart, Smash. We just did a really cool episode on Smash Remix. That's definitely one I want to plug as well. So early in 2024, if you look on your podcast feed, you will see one that is about Smash Remix, which is a mod for Super Smash Brothers that you can play that has new characters like Banjo-Kazooie is in it, Goemon's in it, a lot of the more recent characters that are in the later Smash games are in it, but all played on the N64 in that graphics with more stages, new single player modes and all that. And we spoke to the project lead on that as well to try and ask them about how this process comes to be, because I find that kind of stuff fascinating, because they're all basically like, what are people that are into novels or into novelizations and stuff. Like, instead of fan fiction, it is like fans getting together and creating something like this. And I found that super fascinating. So we're kind of going off the beaten path every once in a while now in 2024, and going to be covering mods and games that are inspired by N64 as well, while we also go through a bunch of probably pretty awkward games that we're going to be playing. So that's the N64 and Remember 64 for you. Find it all across social media at Remember 64 Show. The show is the important part at the end there, because I could not get it otherwise. But Remember 64 shows, you can find it. I'm across every single platform out there. Sometimes I forget about some of them because there's just too much now. But the show's out there, and there's also a YouTube page as well where I have episodes, video versions of all the episodes as well, and some gameplay as well. And my very terrible Smash Brothers gameplay, for example, is playing during that episode. You can see me get my butt whooped while we talk about the game. So Remember 64 out on your podcast feed.
And listeners, if you want to check out an episode of both Eric's and Dave's, I was on an early episode of the Unlockables talking about, I guess it's a little selfish. It's all about me. It's all about me, myself, and I. But no, Eric was nice enough to interview me on the show for his for the Unlockables. I really enjoyed that. And then I was on Dave's show. I was on Remember 64, like he said earlier, to talk about Toy Story 2, one of my favorite Nintendo 64 titles that no one talks about. It's a really underrated 3D platformer, really great. And yeah, and Dave, obviously you were on my Tony Hawk's Pro Skater episode with you and Jiggy. So yeah, and actually, if the scheduling holds, Jiggy's going to be appearing in Mario Month as well. So there we go.
Amazing.
So yeah,
Mario Month bringing people together.
Oh yeah, I mean, Mario bringing people together as he is wont to do. But yeah, so as for myself, you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, Twitch, all that good stuff, at Still Loading Pod. I'm on YouTube, at Still Loading Podcast. If you want to support the show, you can do so in a number of ways. Please consider giving it a 5-star rating or review, because it helps more people find the show, because algorithms and garbage like that. But it also makes me feel warm and fuzzy, and I like feeling warm and fuzzy. So please give it a 5-star rating or review on whichever podcasting app you use. If you like me enough and you don't mind this random punchy episode where I'm normally not this punchy, and you want to check out more of my stuff and support it monetarily, for a few dollars every month, you'll get a bunch of extra stuff over at patreon.com/stillloadingpod. For $1 a month, you'll get all the episodes like this one a few days earlier with better audio quality. You also get access to patron voting rights, which I do quarterly polls to help guide the direction of the show. I put 4 games up, and you all vote on it. All the patrons vote on it to determine which game I am going to be saddled with. The next patron voted topic actually is going to be out on the first Sunday of April. It's on a game called Zillion for the Sega Master System, which I'm not sure I'm happy I was forced to play that. We'll find out when I record the episode. I have thoughts and feelings on it, but we'll get to that. But there's quarterly polls. Also, I started it this year. There is backlog month polls, which happens once a year at the beginning of the year. I write up a poll of 16 games, and the top 4 voted for. The patrons can vote for as many games as they want, and the 4 games with the most votes gets chosen to be covered in backlog month, which is usually like October or November, depending on what I have going on for the show that year. But they will all be covered over the course of a month later on in the year. So that's all for $1 a month. You get all of that for $1 a month. For $3 a month, which is a new tier, you can get a patron shout out at the beginning of each episode, which at the time I'm recording this, there has been no patron shout outs for the show. I'm starting it at episode 300. So there should be some for this. So you would have heard it at the beginning of the episode. So that's $3 a month. For $4 a month, you got everything I mentioned prior, as well as access to 2 mini bonus episodes. And for $5 a month, you'll get everything, all the other tiers, plus access to Still Bonding, which is my monthly James Bond podcast where me and a bunch of friends bond over 007. Once we run out of Bond movies, we will be moving on to some other movie franchise. Maybe Fast and Furious is going to be Still Family. That's going to be the next one, probably. We'll see what movie franchises I can find a still pun and go with it from there. But I'm so sorry for that long-winded ad, I guess. Patreon.com/stillloadingpod. That's it, though. That is all the time I have for you on this episode of Still Loading. Seriously, thank you all for listening. Dave, Eric, thank you for joining me.
Happy to be here, man.
Thanks for having us.
And with all that said, listeners, I will see you all next time.